Okay, so the last chapter here is chapter 11, and it's talking about receiving negative feedback. Next week we'll talk about giving negative feedback, which is perhaps one of the hardest things that leaders and managers have to do. But receiving negative feedback also is really difficult. We don't like it. We typically don't like to hear negative feedback about ourselves. But again, like we talked about with positive feedback, it's essential in order to know what we need to work on and how to improve. But first, there are several different types of criticism, so criticism, negative feedback, constructive feedback. Patterson uses all those terms interchangeably in this chapter. But first, there's nonverbal criticism. So we can just tell by somebody's nonverbals that they're unhappy with us or with our behavior. So they might frown or look away, roll their eyes, and nonverbal criticism is passive aggressive. It's the purpose is to make you understand and see that they're upset, but they are unwilling to be just direct about it. And so that is one way, one type of criticism is the nonverbal. And then there's indirect, which again is passive aggressive. It could be the things like a backhanded compliment. So stripes look good on you. They're slimming. That is, how you might hear that is you are fat, but in that outfit you look more slimming. Okay, so that is ineffective in terms of constructive feedback. And then sometimes there'll be the innocent observation, where they say something negative about a group of people, not directed directly at you, but they know that you are part of that group, and so it would be offensive to that person. So the example that Patterson gives in the book is that you say something around a person that you know is a doctor and say, doctors are scum. Oh wait, you're a doctor? And again, it's passive aggressive. It's a way to be hurtful without having to come right out and say it. Then there's hostile feedback or criticism. And this is where they direct the negative feedback to you as a person and kind of do a personal insult, as opposed to talking about the behavior. So like, you're so lazy, as opposed to, I would appreciate it if you would clean up more around the house, that type of thing. It's also exaggerated and absolute, using words like never, always, you never get anything right, you never do this, you're always late. For most things, there's no absolutes. We're human beings. We sometimes make mistakes, but we sometimes get it right too. So though using those absolute terms, one, it is hurtful to the person hearing it, and two, it's usually incorrect. The purpose of hostile feedback is to be hurtful, and this is aggressive in terms of the type of communication style. The most assertive, appropriate type of negative feedback that we can receive is just direct feedback. It's open and direct. It's not aggressive. They focus on the behavior, and they just specifically state what the problem is. So an example would be, you made a mistake on that report. So that's the behavior. It's direct. You know exactly what they're talking about, but they're not like, you're so stupid, you always make mistakes, you did this report wrong. Okay, that would be hostile. But we're just talking about, for helpful negative feedback, we want it to be open and direct. So even when we receive, obviously when we receive hostile or indirect criticism, we can respond. Sometimes it is hurtful, so we don't know how to respond correctly. But even direct criticism, that good type of assertive feedback that we just talked about, even sometimes hearing that can be hard to take. So sometimes our reactions, we react out of fear. We're afraid, okay, what does this mean? Does this mean I'm going to lose my job? We can be angry at the person, like, why would they say that? Why would they think that? Sometimes we go on the counterattack, and instead of really listening to what they have to say, we immediately lash out at them. Well, it wasn't my mistake, it was your mistake because you did this or you didn't tell me that. Sometimes we just deny it. We say, no, I didn't make a mistake. I was right. We can become defensive. But then the other thing that can sometimes happen, which is also unhealthy, is that we can feel shame or inadequacy. So we can get real low confidence and feel like, see, I'm horrible. I'm never going to be a nurse. I'm horrible at this. And we can start to feel inadequate when we receive that negative feedback. There's better ways of dealing with this and dealing with negative feedback, and Patterson provides several tips for how to deal with negative feedback, how we can receive it better. First is to just relax. Sometimes we hear somebody start saying something negative and we just tense up. We immediately go into that counterattack mode or retaliation mode. We want to avoid that, and so being relaxed can help us with that. Want to hold back, just listen to what they have to say first. Give it some time. Again, sometimes we start lashing out before we've really even heard the whole story or the whole feedback. We also, as we've talked about in all situations, consider your safety, of course, depending on, is the person that's giving you the feedback, are they hostile? Are they going to be turn aggressive? Also, it's important that we don't demand perfection. When people, especially leaders and managers, sometimes they give us, they have to give us some negative feedback, and they're not always great at it. They might not have read this book. They might not be as trained in this. And so they may come off overly hostile or indirect. It's okay. We need to recognize, okay, I didn't like how they gave me that feedback, but I still need to listen to it and think about it. Validate their perception, even saying like, I could see how you thought I made a mistake on that report, but actually this is why I did it this way, and you can explain yourself. But validating their perception of things can be helpful. And also validate their emotions. I can see that this makes you really angry. This can be really helpful in, personal relationships when maybe a significant other or a family member is giving you some negative feedback on something. Sometimes we just have to acknowledge how they're feeling, and that can help calm things down. We can agree in part. That means we can say, you're right, I did make a mistake here, but here's the correct information, or here's the part that was correct. Again, that listening and waiting and letting them get their piece out is important. We've talked about narrowing, and this is just where you want to be asked for clarification and ask them to specifically state what they see the problem is. Because sometimes if they're giving you poor feedback when they're using absolutes like, you're always messing this up, asking for that clarification and asking them to specify can be important. We also want to then explain ourselves sometimes is necessary. But we don't want to offer excuses or blame others. We also don't have to try to change their mind. If their perception is that you did a poor job in this area and you don't feel that way, that's okay. We don't need to change their minds. Getting into an arguing match or fighting over it is not going to be helpful, especially in a work situation. So you can express yourself. They've expressed themselves. You've both listened to each other, and it's okay to disagree. Sometimes this can be really hard, but it can be helpful to thank the critic, especially if it's your manager or boss who's giving you some feedback. You can say, or a professor, thank you for letting me know that. That's, something I will work on in the future. And then also just asking for more time. Sometimes we don't know how to respond in the moment. So saying, can I get back to you on that? Or I'd like to talk more about this, but I need some time to think about it. So, that's the conclusion of chapter 11. So these are the things that you should be working on this week. Reading, you should have read chapters 7 through 11 in the Patterson text. We'll finish the book next week. Review these PowerPoints. You also need to post on the discussion board by Thursday and then respond to at least 2 of your classmates by Sunday. And then you should submit your change agent reflection by Sunday night as well. That's your last portfolio reflection for level 3 that's due. And then next week is the last week of the course, so we want to be working on the portfolio for levels 1 and 2, getting that together, and then your leadership analysis paper. As always, if you have questions, let me know.